The glass is never half empty. It's always half full. And I think that Trump has reignited this spirit, not just to make America great again, but to actually give the American people the power to be great in their own self-awareness, in their self-experience, in their self-expression.
I remember it's probably a year ago or so, Dr. Jerome Corsi, who's got a bunch of #1 best-selling books and has a lot of great connections, a great guy, really hard-working fella. He's recent, Trump even found out about Arpaio and he got the pardon. Of course, he wrote articles that Drudge picked up. He said, yeah, I want to get Ted Malloch on. And, big heavy hitter, advising corporations and part of the Davos group and all the rest of it. He's been fighting globalism from the inside for a long time. And I remember going and looking on Ted Malloch. I mean, that's the guy that ran the big, what was it, Aspen Institute, and was one of the main members organizing Davos that became the most powerful group in the world and connected to all the big heavy hitters. And I knew he'd always promoted free market and stood up for American sovereignty. I know there were good people in the system. Because as we really begin to win, folks, we have to understand we're going to have a lot more folks in the system that once they're able to really stand up and do more are going to appear. We're also going to see people who we think are our friends, they're going to turn on us because of they're being blackmailed, they're being threatened. I mean, if you knew the stuff I've been through, and I'm not complaining, I asked for this, but let me tell you, it's like a James Bond movie, except I'm not as good looking as James Bond, and, I fall on my ass. I mean, the stuff they've pulled, the things they've done, and a lot of people hear that and say, oh my gosh, I better not do anything. It's fun, okay? And it's better than being a slave. But what I'm getting at here is, as we get control of the government, and as we turn the economy back around, that's we the people. As we go back to the Americana system where it's not about elitism, it's about what you actually do and what you produce and what you stand for. As we become more chivalrous again, we get ready to win, folks. This whole hoax, this whole spell we've been under is a good allegory of being under this control can be lifted, and Trump's trying to lift it. He's real. They tried to demoralize us where we believed that there was nothing real. Let me tell you, it's been patriots in the Council on Foreign Relations and in the CIA and in the big universities that have known about this, who've been getting information out forever, and that have basically made sure that globalism now is falling apart. And that's because globalism proved it was a fraud. The globalism of the globalists, not global trade or global connections or global agreements. And so this whole system of secret TPP and screwing America over and dominating the host country is now coming to an end to a great extent. It doesn't mean things are going to be perfect. We're not like communists that offer some utopia, but I'm ranting. Let me stop now. It's just that this is a big crossroads. So before you get into your book and the toll-free number so you can take a few calls for Ted Malloch specifically, 800, we don't screen on there, maybe some trolls, 800-259-9231. 800-259-9231. First-time callers. Talk to a guy who academically and business-wise is at the highest levels and who has been strategically involved, according to all my sources, helping bring down this current authoritarian globalism. So you want to know who helped kick the switch? We the people, all of us together, one of the key people there helping kick the switch to reverse the tide is Ted Malloch. And we have to understand that we need to want people to come from the inside and fight it. But he didn't just flip sides the last 5 years. I learned about what he was doing 6, 7 years ago. I just didn't know how extensive it was, and that for over a decade, he's been fighting the globalist plan. But if you talk to him, he's been doing it since the beginning. So thank God we've had folks that have been inside. So can you spend a few minutes just talking about your evolution, your awakening, how they sold globalism, when you went from just being somebody working inside that structure for American values to somebody that was actively fighting against it? What was that process like? Did it happen overnight? Was it instantaneous? Or did it happen over a long period of time?
Well, I think in my case, if we're talking, and I have a personal memoir, so you can read about it in all of its grainy detail. It's called Davos, Aspen, and Yale: My Life Behind the Elite Curtain as a Global Sherpa. I basically, even as a young person, and as an intellect, growing up around Bill Buckley and Firing Line and National Review and the great books, was always inside the argument about conservative ideas, certainly about religion and culture, and about free market. So there was no turning point for me, no conversion. I happen to have had good fortune to be invited into a number of places that were prominent, I guess, establishmentarian. But even in those places, I tried to be, as the Bible says, light and salt, and to try to bring them into some kind of reason. That was oftentimes a frustrating experience. And there were certainly very strong countervailing forces.
Sure, but as a critic, I mean, you became very, very prominent, I guess, as being a critic, which is an example to folks that are just yes men. In a world of yes men, it's better to be a critic when something's corrupt.
I think you have to. Otherwise, you have no moral character, no backbone whatsoever. So you have to be able either to say no or to stand up or to criticize something, or if you're an academic.
But you become more of an aggressive critic in the last 5-6 years, just from what I've seen on the radar screen. I mean, is that accurate?
It is accurate. That I have, I would say, in the last 10 years, and thanks to some mentors and some foundations, been able to write books that are much, much more critical than at an earlier point in your career where, you know, you're frankly trying to make a buck or get promoted or get to the next rung. So we're all guilty of that kind of careerism. But at this point, I mean, I'm able and willing, and of course I've been doing this both on shows like this and in print, to tell the truth about where we are and how we got there.
Have they tried to punish you?
Well, I mean, they've tried to politically assassinate me. Certainly there are people in the American system, but more in the European side, who see me as their archenemy. They certainly didn't want me to be ambassador for Trump in the European Union because I would have taken them on and I would have made his case. What they want, and still want, they don't have an ambassador yet, is someone who will make their case back to the Americans and to Trump, as opposed to someone who will represent the American perspective and the American national opinion in Europe. So yeah, there are a lot of forces, particularly in the media, who take us on, who try to pigeonhole us and categorize us and make us out to say things that we're not saying. But they're particularly fearful of me because I know them from the inside.
That's right. In fact, well, I mean, I've seen the horrified reports, and then now, I mean, they wish you would just shut up, but the more they tell you to shut up, the more you speak. And it seems like the bullying, don't they get across the board, just of Trump supporters or nationalists or free market folks, that their no-holds-barred bullying has now only really gotten a lot of people off the couch and into a very, very aggressive stance? I think they took our kindness for weakness.
Well, I mean, we have, I think, fought back more so in this last period. And a lot of that, I think, is precipitated by the Brexit situation in the UK and by Mr. Brexit himself. I've mentioned him, Nigel Farage here, but even more so on the world scene by Donald Trump. So he is the persona, I think, that has really transformed the landscape. So you're looking at my bookcase right behind me. I'm very proud to have in one of these frames a letter from the Socialist Party and the Communist Party of the European Parliament that says I should be made, Ted Malloch should be made persona non grata, that I should not be able to have a political or a diplomatic appointment to their European Union.
And that's what I remembered. I was stretching back in my memory that major political parties, because communists are a major party in Europe, folks, are like trying to have you banned, saying you're not fit to serve, basically banning you from public life.
Oh, they would enjoy it if we would go away and just go back and sit on our hands, and if they could take you off the air and stop the publications of other publications, and then they could just go back to business as usual. But that's not the case.
You know, they've approached radio stations we're on and offered them huge sums of money to take us off through other programs. And they go, oh, we don't want that show. And they go, don't worry, any show, not even our show, just get him off. And I've learned behind the scenes they're doing stuff even at the network level, the sabotage oh, you don't want Alex anymore. Carry something else. Yes, I'm aware of that. Just let folks know. So it's definitely hit next level. It's so intense. And I think as libertarians or conservatives or just Christian patriots, we don't tend to want to whine and say, oh, look, we're under attack. It's almost like it's an honor to be under attack. It is. But the listeners and viewers need to know, they don't want us speaking. They need to understand, just getting our articles, our videos, your book, getting these materials out is a revolutionary act. Here's an example. This is up on newswars.com, Adon Salazar, also prisonplanet.com. It's very important to get this out, because we were just talking about how they want to ban him from service, because a lot of folks want to try to have him be an advisor or an ambassador to the European Union via the United States. Trump's talked about that. Speaking of his book, Common Sense Business, we're going to talk about in a moment. Librarian rejects racist Dr. Seuss book donated by Melania Trump. Yes, because she donated it at an event, they don't now want the book, period. Even if it's not the book she even donated. It's because she donated the book. It now, by extension, is racist, and he had to ban colleges, called Lynch, or halls called Lynch. A Cambridge, Massachusetts librarian refused several Dr. Seuss children's books donated by First Lady Melania Trump, claiming the content is steeped in racist propaganda. And it's, oh, the places you'll go where a bear-like creature gets to visit the world and excites kids about the future of the world. So now cartoon characters are now racist. This is mass insanity. What do you make of this, Ted Malloch?
Well, this is clearly a political act. I mean, she was making a donation of children's book. Innocent children's book. We all grew up reading these books and giving them to a library. And this librarian, I'm not saying she's an unqualified librarian, but she's a cultural Marxist, and she's basically saying, we don't want any of these gifts because they're coming from you. And then she makes all these categorical, comments.
And she wants the power to ban whatever she wants when she wants. And that's why the cultural Marxists, as you just said, pick asinine things. Because if they can get away with banning loving, sweet, totally non-racist books, they can ban anything.
Well, and they'd love to ban my book or your book or Jerome Corsi's books or any of the books that still are being published and people need to read and young people need to get their hands on.
Ted Malloch, let's talk about, and I'm going to take a few calls here, common sense business principles for profitable leadership. This is what everybody should be reading, not learning how to be an SJW, not learning how to, if people want to know how to be successful, stop having chips on your shoulders, have good attitudes, and then learn basic systems and then apply yourself. And the world's looking for you. If you'll just be professional, nice, courteous, focused, dedicated, you won't be able to help being promoted and being successful. You agree with that statement, Ted?
I do, but I think we need this kind of jolt, as I say, of common sense business today. And in the past, it came from President Reagan. Today, it's coming from President Trump. We saw yesterday the announcement of his tax plan. So we need policies, both at the national level and at the corporate level, that are prudent, principled, patient, and practical. And most importantly, and this is something we underline in this book, it's all about this, we need to let markets work. We need to defend capitalism again.
Now, Ted, before we go to some more of these phone calls, I haven't read the book yet, but I love it when books have actual great video trailers. I'm excited about it because I want to learn more about business myself. I just got into business to fund my political views, so I've never really went to any official school. But now I do read a lot of the better business people like yourself, and I've learned a lot from it, and it's made us innumerably more successful. So just give us the basic gist of the book, and I want folks to know, don't think of this as too highbrow. So many people never want to read something like this and think, oh, that's not for me. The basic principles you'll learn in something like this are transcendent. So just explain to people why they want to understand business. Because even if you're not officially yourself in your own business, understanding business and how businessmen think and women think is absolutely key to success.
Well, this is for all business people. It's for small businesses, medium-sized businesses, large businesses, for every sector. And frankly, for every country in the world, we need to learn how to do business on a prudent and principled basis. What we do is make this argument. We're very instructive, very informative. I co-authored this book with the former CEO and chairman of the world's largest private company, Cargill. And in the book, we give away a lot of the secrets of companies that have been very successful and very durable over very long periods of time. So on a macro level, it's a defense of capitalism. And on a micro level, it's about all these great examples of companies who have been doing it, so you can learn from those companies.
Sorry, folks who don't know, Cargill is the biggest private company in the world. And I've even seen Obama's regulators circulating around that one to get their fingers in there. And again, so many big globalist corporations that own slave factories in China, you name it, they'll always social justice warrior justice signal, virtue signal, but they won't actually ever give people the tools to catch fish. They'll make you beg for fish and maybe give you, one bite if you sell your soul. But to have Cargill's CEO giving out these mega secrets, you can see capitalism, real capitalists understand they're in a death battle with the collectivists. We've got to bring out the heavy weapons and make sure people are so successful we finally kill this vampire of collectivism once and for all. That's a big deal to have the CEO of Cargill give people the secrets because, things like that could really be used by their enemies that haven't even figured those things out yet. So business secrets are really important. And so for people to be giving away the keys to the kingdom, I think it shows that capitalism that isn't evil understands that they've got to go to the thermonuclear option.
Well, we're talking about good capitalism. We're talking about the morality of the market. We're talking about how companies are extremely profitable over the long term based on these things that they do that, in fact, make them good companies. Just the opposite of what all these socialist professors have been preaching, not teaching, in business schools around the world.
That's right. They want to just tear everything down and then hand it out. It's like if you had a spaceship to go to a new planet, they want to tear down the spaceship and just for fun because it threatens them and then live like a bunch of savages instead of wanting to be part of this, great experiment. They just hate success and want to conquer the engine of success, even though they're going to destroy it so that they can claim that they're dominant when true dominance would be to simply empower humanity. There's no question free market capitalism, even though only a fraction of it has been realized, is thousands of times better than communism. Look at Venezuela. Look at Cuba. Look at all these countries. China's not communist. They've just adopted partial capitalism, and it's taken them a long way. I mean, can you, before we go to calls, a few minutes just on why the elites who made their money through capitalism, so many of them, and what percentage do you think it is, 60, 70%, still want to push collectivism? Is it because now they've gotten to this level, they want to use it as a tool of control? Or is it really that they're bleeding heart fools and are guilty and so want to somehow deploy a system they think will lift everybody up, even though all the science and history and business shows it does the opposite? I mean, are they useful idiots or are they authoritarians?
Well, there are probably some that fit in each of those camps. The problem is that too many of them are redistributionists. So what they're really trying to do is gerrymander a system where they can get rich, but they use the state then to give away everyone else's wealth such that they can then pretend to be do-gooders. And there are way too many of those kinds of globalists operative in the global economy. What we need is more entrepreneurs. We need people who are innovative, who are actually trying to build great companies. And I think, frankly, that operates, first of all, in the startups and in the medium-sized companies that America is famous for. 72% of jobs are created in those places. The tax code that we've been presented with yesterday is going to help incentivize that. We have got to get back to economic growth.
I'm going to take a few phone calls, but before we do in this last 10 minutes, Ted Malloch, tedmalloch.com, the new book, Common Sense Business. I'm going to read it, Principles for Profitable Leadership, giving you really some stuff that smart folks have developed over the years that families have handed down to try to energize the economy and escape the Cloward and Piven folks that want to bankrupt things so they can control it. I mean, that's their admitted paradigm. Any other little kernels of knowledge you want to impart to folks? Any messages you want to give to the dug-in globalists, the EU bureaucrats that exempt themselves from the very taxes they foist on their serfs?
Well, it'd be nice if they would give up their cause and just go back to real jobs, but they've got a cushy existence. I mean, if you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars or euros a year on a tax-free basis, and you spend half your day drinking beer and cocktails, and then pushing around paper, maybe having a real job is just too difficult.
And then they have disdain. I've always noticed parasites have disdain for the host. And I guess they have disdain for themselves, so they're projecting it on us. Dan in Kentucky, Peter in Texas, Dan in Ohio, Kay in Georgia, Phil in New Hampshire. We're going to go to all of you guys and gals right now. Let's go to Kay first. Kay in the great state of Georgia, you're on the air.
Hey, how are you guys doing? First, I wanted to read an Oscar Wilde quote I found yesterday. I thought relevant to your conversation.
Sure.
It's, if you want to tell people the truth, make them laugh. Otherwise, they'll kill you. I'm a retired non-commissioned officer from the United States Army. I worked for many years in the intelligence community, and I've seen this whole thing go down over the past couple of years. I served for 10 years, and I went to Afghanistan twice. And at every stop, there's somebody standing in your way. We know where the bad guys are. We know what they're doing, but it's just the will of the people to stand up to the government so they can get the country back.
You know, that's what I've said, and that's what Lou Dobbs is now saying, that they're trying to break our will. And our will is rising, common sense will, to be prosperous, to be upright, to be decent, and not have a bunch of scum organize a system above us to siphon it off. And so I think we're reaching the tipping point of humanity finding their will again, because this is happening in Africa, Latin America, Asia. Is it something in the air, Ted Malloch? I mean, why is there such a, because you write about this, I'm not putting words in your mouth, such a global awakening?
Well, I'd like to thank this caller, first of all, for his service, which we don't do often enough. He's absolutely right, though. We are in both an information war, and I would say a spiritual war against these forces of darkness, of evil, and of globalism. And more of us are rising up against it. And I think everywhere in the world, at least the places I'm traveling, I'm seeing that sentiment.
Kay, anything else?
Yes, sir. The reason I gave that quote was because when I was in Afghanistan, I was embedded with the local police and the local army doing raids and such, and they could have killed us. I mean, there was nothing standing between.
But you made them. You were friends, and you guys made jokes, and you were friends, right?
I learned their language. I spoke with them. I told them about America and evangelized based on our system. It's so great, and people don't understand that all we need is this entrepreneurial spirit to take over back in the country, and we're going to go off. I mean, my dad didn't come here from Iran to see the country get destroyed in 1978. This place is going crazy. We need to take it back.
That's right. We have to have the optimism, and that's what Trump's done. That's his big crime. It's not that he's racist. They hate him because he's optimistic. He's celebrating plumbers and firefighters and farmers and just average folks and making it about America again. That's what Alexander de Tocqueville talked about, is just celebrating our humanity, getting away from bowing down to elitism. Mr. Malloch?
The glass is never half empty. It's always half full. And I think that Trump has reignited the spirit, not just to make America great again, but to actually give the American people the power to be great in their own self-awareness, in their self-experience, in their self-expression, and I would argue in the companies that they're going to build, because I'm really enthusiastic about the American economy looking into the near future.
Kay, thanks for the call. Maybe Ted can do 5 more minutes the next hour, but then we've got the other big guest joining us. But I want to get to more of your calls, but I've got to say this. They said he'd never get 3.0 growth rate. It's 3.1. And to see the Democrats actively upset that the economy's turning back on, that's why Trump's approval ratings, even with skewed polls, are just going straight up, is because the Democrats are literally like gremlins trying to sabotage a recovery. I mean, don't they get how that looks?
It's the most disappointing thing, to see these gripers who are either trying to, stall the economy or to keep legislation from getting through, or frankly, to resist Trump on every turn. All the president wants to do is to have the American people thrive again. So why can't we just, as Rush Limbaugh said last night, why can't we just for the next 3 or 4 months join arms together, pass this legislation, and get on with it.
And that's what Limbaugh said is key. They want the president to fail, and they're public about it. And he wants all of us to fail, no matter what color we are. Bobby in Tokyo, got about a minute and a half before we got a break. You're on the air with Mr. Malik. Go ahead.
All right, greetings.
Yes, sir. Go ahead,
like,
Bobby.
Yeah, so globalism is always kind of on the borderline, but there seems to be a good globalism, a bad one. Like my father is heavily involved in, I'm a lawyer myself, in intellectual property, and that we want to use it so that all of us can find a good way to develop new business.
I tell you what, Bobby, stay there. I went to you late. We're going to go to break. Ted, can you do 5 more minutes after this break?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. And then we've got a guest, Brandon Tatum. 50+ million views on his video about the NFL. He's joining us. This guy's amazing, too. He's coming up in about 6-7 minutes. We'll be back. I'm Alex Jones. Spread the word.
Survival Shield X2 Nascent Iodine. If you're interested in healthy thyroid, if you're interested in well-being, if you're interested in having a higher IQ, which this has been linked to, get your powerful Survival Shield X2 at InfoWarsStore.com.